hour experience where it's a really solid story and it takes you a few nights to beat it, but you really look forward to doing it because you can see that you're making progress constantly.
I think that's why I'm like stuck on like sports games at the moment, like playing soccer. It's just like you can just hop on, just play it, and not really think about anything. Really, in a way.
You know what? Some of the games that I actually really like from a multiplayer standpoint is, so most of the multiplayer games are, it's you and I against each other, and we both have the same experience, right? Madden, you're both on this playing football, you're both playing the same. Call of Duty, we're both the same kind of character and fighting each other. But have you ever? I know Brogan's played at least one of these, but do you ever have this like asymmetrical type fighting where? For example, Splinter Cell had mercenaries versus spies. It's very different on different sides. Evolved was another game. It's 1v4. There's a game called Depth where it's two people play as sharks and 4 people play as first-person shooters. Have you ever? I mean, do you guys know other games that are similar to that where it's like, hey, we're not necessarily playing like an even match here. It's a very asymmetrical type of fighting. I know Brogan and I loved Mercenaries versus Spies. Any other games that you guys can think of?
I think, you mentioned Evolve, which I think was a great underappreciated game, which I know you and I played for a bit, but not that long. Mm-hmm. And, I wish we would have played that a little bit longer.
Why'd you guys stop playing, though?
It just didn't seem like... Maybe it was...
Was it a good concept?
I think it was,
but it wasn't...
It was a good concept. It wasn't executed very well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because so the idea would be very strong replay value, but there was certain aspects of the game that you're like, I don't want to do this. So when you're playing random matchmaking, you want to play monster versus hunters, but every once in a while you would get the freaking, I don't even know.
I heard that the monsters are pretty OP in that game.
It depends on which one you got. Yeah. Depends on which one you took. So the ones that were ballsier and didn't take the OP ones were way more fun to play against because they I guess maybe they preferred the challenge. I'll take the harder monster to win as.
Yeah. I would say one that I never played, but I always really wanted to play, and I regretted never giving it a shot, was, I think it was Batman Arkham Origins, the one that came out that wasn't as well received as the other ones. It was set before them. In that one, you could do a mode where you played. It was like a first-person shooter where you played as either two. It was 2v2v2. So it was 2 people played as 2 members of Joker's squad, and it was a first-person shooter. And then 2 people played as members of Two-Face's squad in first-person shooter. And then 2 people played as Batman and Robin, and it was third-person like the game. And so the 2 warring factions were fighting, but then Batman and Robin were lurking around in the shadows, and they could go and pick off anybody at any time, kind of a thing. Or if either team killed Batman or Robin, they got extra points.
Oh, okay.
They got 50 extra points, and so if they get both of them, that team definitely wins. Or if they split Batman and Robin, then they have to rely on the points. And
so that's a really awesome idea. Another game that does it is Left 4 Dead. You can play as zombies.
Yeah.
I haven't played that game in forever.
That was a great game.
That was a good game, and I just had one in my head, and I just I forgot. I think it was similar to. Oh, there's a new one coming out, and have you heard about the new Jason game?
No.
When one person gets to be Jason
and
then
the rest of the campers,
and you just basically
gotta
survive and run away.
You should, guys.
That's awesome.
You guys, if you haven't seen it, bro, or obviously haven't seen it, you need to see the gameplay for it. So there's anywhere from 2 to 6 campers, and it's a randomly. So you're in the same park that the original Jason movie was, but every item and thing that you can do is randomly generated throughout that park. And you have to just escape. And there's different ways to escape. One, you can get in the car, but you have to repair the car, get the gas, and take off. One is you can call the cops, but you have to repair the call lines. And then some of them were just to try to walk off the property, but it's too vast. And the famous music, the so if you hear that music, Jason's close to you. And he has
holy shit!
Is one person
awesome.
Jason though?
One person's
so
Jason.
Does everybody? What would be really cool is if everyone loaded into the game as a person, and then someone just ends up disappearing, and then you don't see that person again, and then that's the person who turns into Jason.
Oh my god, that is!
It's really cool. It's really cool. So the way they try to explain the movies is how come Jason's always walking somewhere, but always seems to be ahead of you, and so they gave Jason you can kind of
teleport.
and blink ahead, but you can only do that when you're not seen. And you can also, for short bursts, like move really fast. But they can't see you.
Fucking genius.
And so, and of course, there's like you apparently can kill Jason, but they won't tell you how to do that before it's released. But there is a way to do it. But it's unbelievably.
That's
hard.
like one of the Call of Duty games. I can't remember which one that was, but you're like
the big soldier. Is that what you're talking about?
yeah. Well, it was Jason basically.
Yeah.
Jason was in a Call of Duty game, and one person turns into Jason, and you have to try to kill him, and it's just like it's like super hard to do.
Well, yeah, but the purpose of that is to actually kill him. While this one, you want to avoid Jason and get out of there. And of course, he can see at night. So when you're playing as Jason, you can see perfectly. Everybody else, it's pitch black.
Yeah.
Only with your flashlight.
Oh
And if you
my
don't have
God.
it, it's pitch black.
It's
So
gonna be
mad I didn't
scary.
like think of this idea. Like that's so genius.
And the game that I play, it's called Depth, and it's on Steam. Same goes. You're in this dark water in the dark oceans, and your scuba divers collecting gold, and the sharks can see perfectly. They even have sonar. They always know where you are, but the divers can't see anything. And their job is to try not to get eaten by the sharks. And the sharks are like, they have 30 lives, and they try to eat you. It's absolutely butt clenching. It's so awesome.
That is
It's
amazing.
2v4.
Imagine playing that in like VR though.
Oh,
no,
my.
I would never
Imagine
do that.
Buddy playing that.
I would die.
It is butt clutching. You're just sitting there trying to open up a treasure chest, and all of a sudden, just a shark, boom, just grabs you and takes off with you.
But in like VR, you'd be able to like easily look around and hear things
Oh,
all
yeah.
around you, and you'd be able to like, oh, that would be even more terrifying.
I mean,
Like,
they use
ugh.
the same concept. When the shark's around, your heartbeat beats really fast, so you know he's in the area. You just can't see him. Now you can get little devices and stuff to try to find him, and better guns and
Good
stuff.
idea.
But it's
God.
so awesome.
All these new games are coming out would be amazing on VR.
I agree. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Or just have a VR option. You know what I mean? That's what I think. Okay, so Rogueway.
Right away.
Bounce.
He's just struggling. He's drawing his picture of his cat still.
Yeah,
he drew a
well,
city behind the cat at this
The
point.
cat is destroying the city.
Is that like Big Red, but the cat version?
Yeah. It's,
Clifford?
Red? That's gum.
Is it Clifford?
Clifford,
the
the
big
big red
red
dog.
dog?
Yeah, exactly.
That's
Did you say
dumb.
Big Red?
His face of
Is that Big
disgusted. It was so disgusted when I said
Dude,
that.
that's a cat's
Hey,
name
go
now.
ahead with your Broadway.
so,
Continue.
He gives you permission.
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead, bro.
Go ahead with your Broadway.
okay, the future of VR. Do you guys think that that is going to stick around? I know we talked a little bit about VR in one of our earlier podcasts, but I'm worried that, and I'm using, allow me, I don't think this is the best example, but allow me to use PlayStation VR as the example in this conversation. When PlayStation VR came out, probably, I can't remember exactly, I think it was last fall when it launched, and it came out hot and heavy. It came out and had a bunch of games, a bunch of launch games, like the Batman Arkham version and stuff.
Yeah.
And I know, Wyatt, specifically speaking to you, the PC gamer, I know that like it's been around in the PC world for a little bit longer than PSVR, but I think PSVR was like the introduction of VR to the
console.
masses with console versions and stuff. And, you know, people who had a PlayStation 4 could run VR versus other people who needed to have a $1,000 system. So I think that was a good thing for VR in general. And PlayStation came out hot out of the gate with, like, again, like a ton of really cool experiences. But it's really simmered down since then. You're not hearing a lot about PlayStation VR.
Well, because I think VR with console isn't there yet. So I think with the new release of PS5 and the new release of Xbox, Scorpio, right?
Yeah.
Scorpio?
Yeah. Well,
So
they haven't...
whatever
that's the
they're
code
calling
name.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I think with the releases with those consoles, I think it's going to be a lot easier to have a better quality experience in VR. You know, if you've never put on a Vive or what's the other one that's made by Oculus. If you've never put any of those on and had that experience, then you don't really understand what true VR experience that is.
Well,
And-
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No,
Go
you're
ahead.
fine. Just the experience overall compared to the PlayStation version of VR, it leaps and bounds. So I think once the consoles get revved up a little bit more, I think it's going to be a little bit more comparable, a little bit better of an experience on VR for console.
I also think it really comes down to the game design. You
Yes.
have to design those games. You can't go, hey, I play first-person shooters on my Xbox all the time, so let's design a VR first person. I don't think that's the point. For example, a lot of the games that interest me have nothing to do with that kind of action sequence. I think the haunted house thing is really cool. The Star Trek Bridge Crew, you have to be very the bomb game where you're stuck in a room with a bomb and everybody else has to. You
They're
have to be
outside of
very.
it, yeah.
So you can't think console game. You have to think, okay, what would you like to do in this virtual reality world that you can't do in real life, and what would really entice you with the technology that you have? So it comes down, if the games, if these developers are trying to come up with, there was like, what was that robot shooting game that looked, it looked okay, but really I think what excites people is like the environment, not the action. And if they continue to make games like that consistently and frequently, I think VR will be around for a while, and it won't be like the VR back in the Game Boy days. What was that red?
Play a Virtual Boy.
Yeah, it won't be like that.
Yeah.
And just be dust it off your shelf and
I also
sell it on eBay.
Well, I also think that, totally agree with you on that. Like, it's just the immersiveness of the game, and tying back to what you were saying, like, if you can't build a reality inside of reality, then you're not going to be able to be hooked into that
That's
VR
really well
experience.
said. That's really well said. A reality inside of reality. Like, if you can make people believe it.
I think that, like, playing it, and like there's this ocean thing where you're going through and all these jellyfishes are swimming at, and you can literally go out and touch one and it has a reaction. So like that immersiveness, that you're drawn into that environment, you feel like you're in that environment. You hear everything around you, and you can't take a step back because you're in it.
Yeah.
And you don't realize it. Then you have to really, really think like, okay, I'm really in this experience. Now I know I'm in this experience. It's not real.
Let me give you guys an example of how I think VR should go moving forward, okay? And I'm, I represent like Blev and I represent like the console side of things. I know you represent the PC side of things, and it's a little bit different. And Buddy represents the console side too. And I think Nintendo, I want to get into this later too. I think Nintendo should try their hand at the VR experience
I really
too.
do, yeah.
But before that,
You don't, buddy?
Buddy
Why
doesn't.
not?
Hold on. 1 second. So here's, and I'm talking specifically about like PlayStation and Xbox and stuff, and maybe specifically Xbox, because Blev, I think you bring up a good point. I think the Scorpio is going to be the gateway to true VR experience on a console, because I think it's literally, they already have a relationship with Oculus. Oculus is right now ship with a Xbox One controller. So, like, there's obviously a relationship there between the two companies, and I think Oculus is going to be released for Xbox Scorpio, whatever they come out with. Anyways, here's how I think that it thrives on a console experience. I think it's an add-on to a console game, right? So I'm thinking about, let me give you an example, like The Witcher, right? You guys familiar with The Witcher, the video game?
Yeah.
So kind of mythical, and there's a lot of other things that you can do in that game. And like one of the things that spawned from that game is a game called Gwent, I think, where it's this card game that you can play in the game The Witcher. But then it spawned a whole like side release of a game that you can download totally separately, and it's like a card game that you would play in a tavern in the game The Witcher. I think VR can amplify the experience of a game by being like a separate mode in a game. So you boot up The Witcher and you say, okay, I want to do the VR experience of Witcher. And it's not the whole game of Witcher, but it lets you walk around a tavern in The Witcher. It lets you say, okay, I want to go interact with a couple NPCs in The Witcher and like sit down and play a card game, or sit down and have a conversation with somebody at the bar. But then like that's it. You can't leave that tavern or anything like that, but it lets you have like an additional experience with that game that like lets you do something cool. Or like in a Batman Arkham game, you like, I feel like we talk about Batman Arkham so much.
Well, the PlayStation one allowed you to like look at your
you're
stuff.
like the detective and stuff. But I'm just saying, like, even like a game like that would allow you to like walk around the Batcave. So whenever you enter the Batcave, you have the option, if you have a PSVR, to throw that on, and everything you do in the Batcave you can do in PSVR. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Or like Halo. Like even if they went that far, like your mission briefing before you go out to do your level in Halo, you could like throw on an Oculus Rift or whatever, and you throw on that Oculus Rift, and you're looking at a hologram of Cortana telling you exactly what you're about to go do in your mission, and she's like showing you the map, and like you're able to look around, and you're looking through Master Chief's visor. You know what I mean? Like that kind of like cool secondary immersion experience. But then it's like, okay, now it's time to play. pull the headset off and just play Halo like you've always played Halo. You know what
I
mean?
think that's good as long as that effort is put into it. For example, I just saw a release for a new Dragon Ball Z VR game, and that sounds great, right? Is that all, like, for those of you who
What
grew
are you
up
going to be
watching?
doing in that game then?
There's the thing. Here's the thing. I was like, Dragon Ball Z, in my head, in VR, I am going to fight somebody, I am going to fly around, and that's not exactly what I got from the